Not always easy, but I think what I've learned in the last years is having boundaries for all of the above. If you let all these areas to interfere with the others, then you will definitely burn out, and you will lose contact with what you're doing, and it's not sustainable. So I have a dedicated time.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to another amazing, inspiring episodes of Trifantry Chronicle. Today, we travel all the way to Italy and then to UK and meet our friend Nick Busca. Let me tell you about Nick. Nick is the voice of triathlon, as I like to call him, the new voice of triathlon. Nick is an Ironman certified coach. He is also an athlete, and Nick writes about triathlons and racing in general in BBC. He has written for New York Times, he's written for Guardian, he's written for Triathlon Magazine Canada and various other publications. Without further ado, let me welcome Nick. Nick, thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming over the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure. And I don't know about the voice of triathlon, but I'll take it.
No, absolutely. Your articles are helping various athletes of different abilities with different levels to learn more about racing and how the culture is evolving. How did you get into triathlons, and tell us a bit about your love for triathlons?
Well, first, that's great to hear that you feel like my articles are helping people, because I rarely get the feedback, so it's nice to hear that there is a value in there. So that's good, and thank you for that. So I started triathlon relatively late in my year. I was 25 years old at university, in a period where I was not very fit and wanted to kind of start swimming again after 10 years of no swimming at all. I was doing 25 meters in the swimming pool, and that was it, done, cooked. So I started pretty late because my real background in sports was alpine skiing. I grew up in the Italian Alps, so lived in a small village in the Alps for 25 years, where alpine skiing, so downhill skiing, was the main thing. Of course, we also had cross-country skiing, but downhill was more fun. So that's why I started with that first. Triathlon, as I said, I started when I was 25, and when I was at university in Torino. You might know because of Juventus soccer team, football team, which is in the northwest of Italy, not far from the French and Swiss border, so up north. And I started with a triathlon team in Torino, a small team, and my coach at that time was Vladimir Polikarpenko, a former Olympian athlete from the Ukraine. So I didn't know him very much, or at all actually, but I was very lucky to be coached by him in the first place, because I've got pretty tough lessons learned in the first months, but definitely a great start. At that time, it was just for fun, and again, a way to get fit again. And then things got more serious probably when I moved here in the UK in 2015. So 5 years ago, about 5 years after I started triathlon. And I joined a bigger club where people were more driven probably, and more focused on long distance events. And from a summer experience or summer training, triathlon evolved into an all year round activity for me. And I started coaching 3 years ago. I did the first level with British Triathlon, which is the Triathlon Federation in the UK, and then the Ironman coaching qualification as well. And then I continued with the federation, so I did 2 more courses with them. And then I keep learning. I keep learning every year. I try to do a course or 2 just to be on top of what's going on. And learn also to transmit and to give what I learned to my current athletes. That is about my triathlon experience. On the other side, and at the same time, I've been working as a freelance journalist for 10 years as well. I started at the university when I was studying. I was covering news and politics and events, a little bit of sports at that time, but not much. And again, I had to adapt and change when I moved in the UK 5 years ago. And that's when I started to report about cycling and about triathlon specifically. And now is most of what I do in terms of the journalism. So the two things kind of evolved separately in different directions, but then they merged. And now it's I do one thing, which is triathlon and sports in general. And but do it in different ways, which is could be the coaching or the journalism and so on.
That's awesome, Nick. I think they say that people who are able to converge their profession and their passion into, together, they are probably the luckiest people on this planet. And even if you're able to do some of it, you are probably one of the most lucky guys. So, Nick, let me also tell you a bit about the triathlon and marathon and cycling scenes in India. It's pretty new. Triathlons, in fact, is very new. It's probably a couple of years old when the mainstream Ironman event came to India. And we've had some smaller event, Olympic and 70.3 distance races organized in the last 4 to 5 years. And I would really like to understand from you, like, how can we grow this scene in India, because it's been there. Cycling is probably like 100 years old in Europe. Is that right? More than 100 years old, and it's pretty new in India. So what do you have to say about growing the culture of cycling and triathlons?
That's a big question and a big responsibility. I don't want to be quoted. No, but that's very interesting, and I think it's very interesting to see places like India or other countries where these sports are developing. For me, it's very new in the sense that I grew up with cycling as one of my main sports. In Italy is historic, as you mentioned. Yeah, we have Grand Tours races like the Giro d'Italia, who's been going on for more than 100 years. So I grew up with cycling being one of the norm. Like you have football, soccer, and then cycling was my other main big sports that I followed. So I remember when I was a kid just watching these races, these 4 or 5 hour long races at the TV when outside the sun was shining and we had amazing days, but I couldn't care less. I just wanted to watch the race and then hop on my bike and just like try to be like those cyclists. So it's interesting to see countries where this has not been the norm, and I guess to develop it at some extent, there's definitely need to be interest in the people, like demand for this sort of activities, and then support, different kind of supports, which could be media exposure, but governing bodies like the federation and national federation, which are supposed to provide for a platform for youngsters to develop in their sports. Not that these happen all the times, but that's what are aiming at. And then for sure, private and individual investments, like people investing in smaller companies, which could be coaching companies like yourself, that are voices that didn't exist a few years ago. So there's a combination of different dynamics, I guess. That would be my answer. But they all come together probably in developing the demand and in developing the interest that people have, and also to like make happening what people didn't have and would like to see.
Absolutely. I think one other thing which needs to happen is that you have in Europe, you have a lot of amazing brands that are creating quality products which are easily available for you. Like if I have to order a smart trainer or maybe an accessory for my bike, I literally have to import it through a couple of dealers, and I have to wait for like months together. That kind of just kills the vibe, and stuff then obviously becomes even more expensive. Whatever equipment and bikes and bike computers and accessories, whatever is available to you, it's almost like 1.5x what is available in India. So I think if that problem can also be solved, that will help in people sort of taking up sports.
Yeah, but you told me something I didn't know. And I mean, I know that different countries has different supplies and different ways to get products. But for example, yeah, you highlighted probably the most important thing, the possibility to get stuff that gets you out there and do sports. Not that you need a lot to start in triathlons. It could be very, very basic gear. And I actually am supporting of a way of like keeping it simple. But yes, if you have issues in getting products, that it's an extra barrier that needs to be overcome.
Yeah, just imagine like Hollywood movies releasing everywhere across the world together in India, but you don't have systems or channels where trainers or various other these things are not freely available. Like I'll share a personal experience. Because of COVID, we were all stuck at home for the longest time, and there's a good part also, there's a bad part. Good part is that people realize the importance of health and fitness and maybe outdoor sports even more than gymming and all. So that is helping uptick the uptake of triathlons and running and cycling. But on the other hand, there is such an issue for supply side that if you're looking for a bike, a decent road bike, a carbon frame bike, you literally have to wait for 4-5 months. Same goes with the trainers also. I ordered one in the month of May. It got cancelled. June, July got cancelled. August got cancelled. I'm still waiting for my shipment in September.
I hope you get it before you start using for the winter months.
I hope the vaccine comes out faster than the trainer.
Well, that we all hope.
Absolutely. Nick, you have been writing for one of the major publications in the world, and I'm sure a lot of people get to read it online and in the physical newspapers. Tell us about your experience of writing for the sport, and how you got segued into writing for particular sports.
As I said, I started working more on triathlon and cycling 5 years ago, and that coincided to me writing in English for the first time, because I was writing in Italian before. So as a freelance, it's just about pitching stories to editors. So essentially is to have an idea, and secondly to have the right email address to pitch that idea, and then you have to like follow up and be there all the time, knocking at the door, make sure they read the email, or that you can pass on to the next magazine. So that's the basic of it. Then I worked for a cycling magazine in the UK for a little longer, for 6 months as a full-time writer, and I was testing bikes and gear and writing about cycling. But then I kept doing freelancing because the company moved, so the commute was not doable anymore, and I focused more and more on triathlon and cycling. So I kept just like writing about training, about personalities, about races. So it's always trying to have ideas to pitch to magazines with different angles, different storylines that could work with some and not with others. It's a constant effort. It's like a constant training. You need to wake up in the morning and keep the flow goes.
Absolutely. You're also a Ironman coach, and you help athletes with their own goals. How do you manage your coaching, your writing, your professional life, and your personal life?
Yeah, not always easy, but I think what I've learned in the last years is having boundaries for all of the above. If you let all these areas to interfere with the others, then you will definitely burn out, and you will lose contact with what you're doing, and it's not sustainable. So I have a dedicated time for the coaching, I have a dedicated time for freelancing, and I have, and my priorities, of course, is my family, and that is priority number one. So I have to protect the time I have at home. And when I need to stop working, like 6 p.m., 6:30, 7 p.m., I just switch off, and that's it for the day. You have to protect that time to be healthy and to enjoy what you treasure the most in your life, because otherwise, yeah, it would be too much work.
This is absolutely, listeners or viewers, remember to balance it out, because the sport of triathlon asks a lot from you. On an average, if you're preparing for a 70.3, you would be putting at least 10 to 12 hours of training. And if you're doing full, then you'll be putting even more. And if you're doing any ultra cycling events, probably even more. So like Nick just mentioned, having boundaries, balancing everything out is one of the most important part of not just racing, but life in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are your thoughts on sleep, and how is it important? Should people be focused on getting their hours of sleep followed by nutrition? So what are your thoughts on these two areas?
Yeah, without sleep and without proper fueling, there's nothing that you could do in a good way, in the sense that I always tell my athletes, but I always tell myself and people who wants to perform in any activity, could it be sport, but it could be just like getting up and go to your job, into your office. You need to be well rested to perform at a certain level. And if you start to take times off your sleep, in the long term, it's not going to work. I mean, you can get away a couple of days here and there, but if it's a habit, not sleeping enough or not sleeping well, because it's not just the quantity but the quality of sleep that makes a difference, then long term, anything you do, it's becoming too hard to sustain. Nutrition as well. Nutrition, because of my culture, because Italy is very much into food, I'm really into good food, good quality food, so good products or whole foods normally, and raw stuff that I cook myself, and I don't get too much takeaways. For example, we can make it very complicated, but at the end of the day, we keep it simple and keep it very basic. I try to have a balanced diet with all 3 macronutrients constantly in, and then you can play around a little bit with the days you train less and train more, but make sure you've got enough energy to do not only triathlon, but any activities you do in your life. Plus, if you add all those hours of training, you need to be more careful. And if you're vegetarian or vegan, it's possible to be an athlete and having those dietary restrictions. You just need to put an extra effort in order to match the needs.
Yeah. Nick, what are your thoughts on alcohol consumption for a triathlete or a cyclist or a marathoner? How much would you recommend, if you recommend anything?
Well, my easy answers would be better not to. I mean, that's a no-brainer for me, just because I feel like the benefits. Even when I drink, and I drink a beer here and there, of course, and a glass of wine. I'm not saying athletes don't have to, but of course, if you look at the research and if you look at effects of alcohol into your sleep and sleep quality, then there will be a no-brainer to say I'm not going to drink a beer at dinner and I skip it. So I mean, I'm not saying don't drink, because if you enjoy having a beer and a glass of wine, you shouldn't take it out your of your habits or having one here and there. I'm just saying, yeah, if you want to reduce a little bit, just reduce step by step. Don't just take it all away altogether and just like keep it as a social moment. It's totally fine. Again, the less you consume, the better. That's hard to accept if you want for some, but that's easy as it could be.
I specifically asked this question because this is one of the most common questions. In fact, right before racing, also some athletes tend to ask me, is it okay if I have like a couple of whiskey pegs and all before the race? I'm like, get off alcohol.
Whiskey
Or beer or whiskey. I'm like,
whiskey maybe it would be hard before a race. You don't go straight on the bike.
Yeah, yeah, it's a common question, and in fact, funny part is that people also tell you that like beer is considered to be anti-inflammatory. I'm like, okay, don't.
Yeah. There's a lot about that in beer, but if you look at the research and studies, the benefits are known. They cannot. They have some impact on performances, and some studies even suggest that there's not a big correlation about if you consume one beer and performance. But I would not suggest to people just drink, because some studies suggest that there's no correlation. I was used to a couple of years ago with some friends when I moved here to the UK before a big event, the night before, just having a pint with my friend, because it was like, it's a tradition. But no, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm just like, I cannot do it anymore. I would probably sleep bad, and that's the thing. You don't want to sleep bad. Yeah, you're trying to sleep as good as you can before an event.
Any which ways, one has so much goosebumps or butterflies in your stomach. You're hardly able to sleep like a day or two before the race.
Yeah, no, that's something you always have to put into consideration. Yeah, of course. But sometimes you can. I lately slept very well, and you can feel the difference when you wake up on race day and you've slept actually like a good 4 or 5 hours, like good quality. It's like, I'm fresh.
Yeah.
Do it.
Absolutely. In fact, couple of races. I've not done many 70.3s, but one race I could sleep well, and the other race, my first race, I could not sleep because it was obviously my first race. The difference was huge. You can literally just feel you are more calmer, you are more relaxed and fresh.
Yeah, the mind is clear. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I personally feel that maybe alcohol would be counterintuitive, because when we are putting so much effort on hydration and salination and all of that, alcohol by design is supposed to drain you out. So all the efforts you're putting in the hydration part of it is not going to be that helpful when it comes to hydration, right? Yeah. So Nick, coming to an important part of the conversation, you recently did a full Ironman at Estonia, and this is important because this was one of the very few races that happened across the world. All the races across the world are cancelled. How was your experience racing during the COVID times?
So the hardest part was probably getting there to like at the start line. I mean, really, because first the event was postponed from August 1st to September 5th. And we're talking, about Ironman Tallinn in Estonia. And then I was pretty much sure that following like other events, most of Ironman events this year, it would have been deferred to next year. But actually, the organizers were always positive and always sure the event was going ahead. And I was really, really not sure that was true. But I stick to the plan, stick to my training. Of course, swimming was hard because our pools opened in end of July, so a month before the race. So for 2 months, I was just swimming in lakes. So I was hiring a car and driving to the lakes twice a week here in London. Then I did some more swim trainings. I kept my running and my cycling going as if the race was going ahead. the hard part was like seeing the infection rates in different countries in Europe spiking up again during the summer. And there was this threshold that is 16 infection per 100,000 people. And there was the threshold for Estonia to be required to self-quarantine if your country was above the 16th, and not to self-isolate if the country was below 16. So I booked my flights from London when we were like 12, and I was like, oh, fine, it's 4 weeks. We're not gonna go back to 16 because it was going down. And then the week after, they were back up to 14. I was like, oh my God. And then they kept going up. So it was like, not sure I was actually being able to get there, although the race was going ahead. And that was very, very stressful. So I was not alone, and a lot of other people in Europe had the same problem. We were all writing to the organizer on Facebook, on emails anyway, and they were really, really amazing in responding pretty quickly. And they were keep saying that there's always the option to defer to 2021 if you cannot travel to Estonia for COVID-related issues. So 2 weeks before the event, I was seeing the number keep going up, and so there was like, okay, so either I wait the week before the event to decide to see how the numbers are and decide to go or not, or I just decide to go there 2 weeks plus before the event in order to comply with self-isolation because the number were going up and being fine to race. So I actually decided to change the flight. So I spent 3 hours at the phone with EasyJet, the company, to change the flight. 3 hours. I will always remember those 3 hours at the phone with EasyJet.
Not joking.
No, just listening to the music, and then when we spoke for like 10 minutes. But yeah, 3 hours wait in line. So I decided to travel 2 weeks before, change the flight, change the Airbnb. Luckily, when I landed in Tallinn, the numbers in the UK were 0.4 below the threshold. I mean, super lucky. So I was not obliged to self-isolate. So I had a great 2 weeks of training in Tallinn, actually better than here because the pools were open, and I actually trained on race course all the time. So I knew it by heart. And at that time,
Sorry. You had to be in Tallinn 2 weeks before the race itself? At least 2 weeks?
Yes, if the country was on the red, like above 16, in order to comply to the self-isolation. I was not there yet, but the numbers were going up. So I just like took the gamble and said, okay, I'm going 2 weeks before. And even if I'm red country, I will self-isolate. But then the UK numbers were a little bit below the threshold, so I was free to train and do all the rest freely. But that was not the case for a person I met there who was traveling from the Netherlands. So she's self-isolate for 2 weeks. So just going out for grocery, and training was allowed. Like you could have run and cycled, but not swimming. And she complied to that. And then 1 week before the event, they changed the immigration rule again. So even if you were traveling from the above 16 threshold, you could have raced Ironman Tallinn if you're taking 2 different COVID tests. It could have been either 72 hours before your flight and then upon arrival in Estonia. So you needed to have 2 negative tests, or you could have done 2 tests, one arriving in Estonia and one 2 days after. But that would have been too close to race day. So people were like booking tests before flying and then 1 test upon arrival. And then if they had 2 negatives, they were allowed to race. And they actually just tested positive 1 person who was then put into quarantine in an hotel in Estonia for 2 weeks. So as you can see, we're not even at the race.
I'm thinking of all the logistics, like you're supposed to carry your bike, your nutrition, you're worried about your hotel, your accommodation, travel, and on top of it, the stress of COVID.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You know, I mean, organizing and training and getting to an event like this is already always a big stress. You add up all this, it's just becoming insanely hard.
And so New York Times carried this, right? You wrote this article for New York Times.
Yeah, I pitched them the story just before traveling to Estonia and got a commission while I was there. And basically we wanted to tell people what I was experiencing, and that's what I tried to do. Not only the logistic nightmare to get there, but then how their safety measures were put in place. Because now the big news in Ironman Racing, at least as I experience it, is that you have given check-in times for getting your gear and your registration pack. So you have certain allowed times to get that on race week. And that is also true for dropping your bike at transition 1 the day before the event, and dropping your not the runs, not the run stuff, but the bike stuff. So you have specific times to do all these tasks during the week, which could sound a lot, but actually made the stay there and all the process a little bit smoother, because you knew what to do and when. And normally I have experienced that the weeks of the Ironmans, I tend to lose a little bit of time, because I always try to do these things at the last minute, just to or as early as I can. Having times actually helped me to just plan and book it a little bit better. Then when you get to registration, there's of course a line of people, because they need to have not a lot of people. The maximum number of people is 69 per wave to get on each different waves. So there's a little queue to get to registration. The first thing they do is checking your body temperature with one of the not touchable contact one. And then you've got either the green light or the red light if your temperature is above 38 degrees. But as far as I know, they didn't test anyone above 38. So green light towards the registration. And you get your race pack, you show your QR code, you get your race pack, of course, you show your license, and then you get your bag with your things for the race. Everyone is wearing masks. You are asked to wear a mask. If you don't have one, they give you one. They ask you to sanitize your hands before entering, of course. And so it's very strict in those processes, but it worked pretty smoothly for me. I looked at my watch and it took 7 minutes from start to finish. So that was very, very efficient. But I also know of other people spending more time there, because the queues were longer. Because if you're not showing up at your giving time, you're asked to come back later. So if there's people missing their time slots, then they accumulate on different times, and it could be more weight.
Wow. I think in our coaching curriculum, we need to add this as one of the drills, like fixing flat or checking one of the races.
Make sure you have face masks and hand sanitizer always with you. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a new normal, and will stick in triathlon racings for a few years for sure. I mean, I don't know for sure, but any race from now on will have these safety procedures in place.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing this story, Nick, because I think COVID and racing in times of COVID is going to be new normal, at least next 2-3 years, 4 years, what people are projecting. And so I think this particular knowledge, the information will certainly help people in planning. Nick, there is a bit of dilemma in the minds of people for registering for their 2021 season, 2022 season. What do you have to say about it? Because now you've experienced it firsthand. What are your thoughts on it?
So no, as I experienced, that is possible. Some race will go ahead depending on the different situation in different countries. I probably will be able to experience events that are more local to us. So longer trips will become less possible, and probably less logic too. And that would be actually be a good positive things for local events if they will run, because local events and small events have been hardly impacted, especially here in Europe. So we don't know if they're going ahead next year. I really hope so, because it's really important for local clubs to have their smaller events. So there will be races, but probably we will not travel as much as before, which is not totally bad per se.
Yeah, that's right. I think there's going to be a problem with the international travels also, and the visa process itself will take some time for streamlining. In fact, in India, we just started domestic travels just a couple of months back, and the air traffic is still at 30 to 40% of what it was earlier.
Wow.
So it's going to take, I think it's more of a psychological thing as well, what people of the world are facing right now.
Yeah.
How's that affecting your training and of the trainees, like the coaching that you give to people? Are you seeing any difference in the style of coaching and how people are taking health and fitness in general during these times?
Yeah, it was different depending on the countries where they were from. I had athletes in Italy who didn't get out of their apartment for 2 months, just for grocery. So it was pretty tough. And we decided together to okay, well, what to do, because I never coached people in these situations. So that was a challenge for me as well. So we had an open conversation, and we decided that they still wanted a structure to just give something to their daily routines to continue normally. Of course, it was not normal as before. So they did a lot of turbo sessions, of course, on the trainers, and they all said they benefited a lot from all that turbo session. And I can see it also from their files. The power outputs and the tests we did were much higher than before, for sure. Running was hard because these guys couldn't even run, so we had to find something to do that could have replicated run for a little bit. So we tried rope jumping. So we did some session of rope jumping, 1 minute off, 1 minute on, and then play around with the intensities there. And that is actually something that replicates a little bit of the muscle involved in running. And if you have just one room available, it's good to try. And some went better than others. Others had very tight calves after that, so we had to be careful also on that. So it's definitely been a challenge. People in the UK were more allowed to do sports, so we were allowed to go out once a day. So I also was going out once a day for my run or my shorter cycle, or walk, just to keep the mind healthy.
Absolutely. I think the times that have changed drastically, the home fitness scenario will continue to remain, and people would continue to, I think, train indoors as well, but avoiding gyms. And also, I think after a certain time, when the situation becomes better in different countries, people would start taking up outdoor sports as well. So in a way, it's good also for our sport of running and triathlons, hoping more and more people take it up in different countries, especially in India. It's a brand new sport, and the perspective that you have shared today would certainly help a lot of the Indian viewers, and I'm sure the European viewers as well.
I hope so, yeah.
Nick,
it would be nice to see more people in triathlon for sure.
Absolutely. So Nick, this brings us to the last segment of our discussion. I call it the rapid fire round. Now, the rapid fire round is a set of 10 questions, which I'm going to be asking you really quickly. You have hardly 5 seconds to think about it and answer. Okay. And for the viewers, listeners, the questions are not rigged. He does not know anything. None of these questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get started. Rapid fire round with Nick Busca from Italy. First question, Nick. In order of preference, which is your favorite sport? Cycling, skiing, triathlon, or running?
Cycling, running, swimming. But it's hard. They're very close.
Okay. Training in the morning or training at night or afternoon? Which do you?
Morning, afternoon, night, I probably never do.
Any specific reason? Are you a morning person?
Not exact. I mean, I'm not super morning, not super early, but I prefer the morning.
Okay. What do you like more in cycling events? You like to race in ultra cycling events or triathlon cycling
Triathlons for sure.
Okay. Because you're an Italian, in order of food preference, and I don't have any options, tell us the top 5 foods that you like. The Italian.
Top 5?
Yes, top 5. And please put types of pizzas.
There will be too long to get into the pizza. But I'm not a great Italian, so I'm not putting pasta at first. I'm a bad Italian. I actually put, favorite for me is actually steak and potatoes.
Okay.
Then I probably have a quinoa salad with mixed vegetables and chicken. Pizza on number 3, just because I want to be kind of healthier, but the pizza, which is good, very good if you have very good ingredients. Number 4, chocolate cake, chocolate in general.
Okay.
Number 5.
I had a drink. It's almost like a 4-course
soup.
Now.
A mix, winter soup with mixed vegetables. I love that.
Okay. What's your most favorite locations that you have ever raced? 3 most favorite locations you've raced in.
The favorite location where I raced at, it's tricky. Probably the nicest one was Austria, Zell am See, 70.3. Nicest location. And then I would put Tallinn because it's very close to me, now and the heart, where I went very well. And then Copenhagen, first Ironman, and nice atmosphere.
Nice. Thailand because you finished in 9 hours, 45 minutes?
48. I would have not mind 3 minutes less, but no, 48, which was really good. I'm really happy about it.
Okay. So you have raced in various altitudes and weathers. What do you prefer more, like racing, training in flats or high altitude, or summer season, winter season? What's your favorite training season?
For training, I prefer mountain training, like in the mountains. I love it. It's just like what I'm used to since I was a kid. So it's like going back to my roots. Racing, I would probably prefer rolling races, not completely flat, but rolling. And that was it. Racing and training. Oh.
Super. Yeah, I mean, that answers yes. Okay, I've seen that you're present on various social media platforms like Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. What do you prefer? What's your favorite platform?
Probably Twitter. I'm not really active on Twitter. I actually follow people like sports physiologists, journalists, so to find news. But I like the fact, I like it more than the others. The way that it's just
it's journalist in you talking. All the journalists and publications love Twitter.
Yeah, they're all there screaming at each other.
Looking for breaking news.
Yes.
Okay. What is your most favorite bike brand and why?
You mean plan? or train?
No, bike. Your most favorite bicycle brand, and why?
Brand.
Yes.
I'm biased. I own 2 Canyons, so I have Canyon. I have to say Canyon. I just love a lot of what they do and the way they do it.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that brand. You have to get me one. In India, we don't get it. I told you about the logistical problem and the duties.
We have to try. We'll try.
Okay, what are your most favorite shoe and apparel brands in triathlon?
Shoes, Saucony,
Okay.
because I've been using them for 6 years, and I always buy the same model and always work for me. The Kinvara. So hands down to that. Apparel brand. I've been using Sun-Dry, which is a brand made in the UK, and they do some interesting stuff with recycling, with recycled shirts from either plastic or coffee waste.
Wow.
So that was pretty interesting, and I've been using them for a whole year now, and yeah, I'm very happy with that.
That's nice. Brand with a cause. That's always good to associate yourself with. Last
Yeah.
one, black coffee or normal regular coffee? What do you prefer?
What do you mean with normal?
Latte, cappuccino.
No, for me the normal is the opposite. It's black coffee. I mean espresso.
Yeah, I mean,
Espresso is the normal, and then latte art is the extra. No, espresso, black, like short espresso or long espresso, and then cappuccino. That's it.
Awesome. That is something all our guests have in common. Everyone loves black coffee. All endurance athletes, I think, have a bias towards espresso or black coffee.
Be careful with caffeine again if you want to sleep well.
Absolutely. No coffee after 7 p.m. is the rule.
Oh, for me it's 2 p.m.
What are you saying?
Yeah, 2 p.m.
Okay.
I couldn't do any more.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nick. You have been so kind with your answers and the way you've explained so many things. Any parting tips and parting shots, motivation for triathlon and marathon trainees of Trifantry and people in general?
Keep it simple. I mean, we can overthink and overcomplicate things a lot these days with training methodologies, kit, data, gear. You can become really like complicated in triathlon. Triathlon is already complicated because it has 3 sports in one. Just try to keep it simple and do the easy stuff very well.
Yeah, I think that is one of the best advice you can have. Keep it simple. Do not worry about fancy equipment, over-analysis of data. Just keep it simple. Enjoy the sport. Enjoy the joy of endurance sport. It changes your lives. It changes your body. It changes your mental abilities. Thank you so much, Nick. You have been so kind. You've shared so much of your wisdom with all our viewers. It's amazing to have you. Thank you so much, listeners. You have been kind enough to wait till this end. Keep watching, keep subscribe to the channel, and we will bring you amazing global guests and athletes across the world. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel, Trifantry, click on the bell icon, and I will see you in the next video. Train, endure, conquer.